In this lesson, you will learn to apply theorems about parallel lines and the segment that joins the midpoints of two sides of a triangle. So the first theorem says that if two lines are parallel, then all the points on one line are equidistant from the other line. So here we see two parallel lines, and the distance from the two parallel lines from this point to this point is 5 feet. Now this theorem says that if I were to look at other points along the line, it doesn't matter where I go, every place on these parallel lines would be 5 feet across. So here we see a little animation. I can drag that back and forth, and it doesn't matter where I go, it will always equal 5 feet. And this is kind of the idea of a railroad, where you can imagine the top and the bottom lines as being the two rails, and then this line down the middle would be the different beams that connect the two rails. And it doesn't matter where I put the beam, every beam would be the same length that connects the two rails. And that is the concept behind this theorem. The next theorem says that if three parallel lines cut off congruent segments on one transversal, then they cut off congruent segments on every transversal. So we see here that we have three parallel lines and then this line cutting through. Well, this line cutting through is creating segments that are both 3 inches in length. Well, if that is true, if we have congruent segments here and here, both are 3 inches, then any transversal that I create would also cut off congruent segments. So here's another transversal at a different angle, and the segments that those create would both be the same as well. So maybe something like 3.5. So if the first segment cuts off congruent segments, then any other segment would cut off congruent segments as well, if we have three parallel lines that is cutting through. The next theorem says that a line that contains the midpoints of one side of a triangle and is parallel to another side passes through the midpoint of the third side. So we see here that we have this triangle, and we draw this line across, MN, this line, and it's parallel to the other side. And it's going through the midpoint of side AB. If you have this picture, then this line that cuts through the midpoint of AB, going through point M, would also cut through the midpoint of AC, hitting it at point N over here. And that is that third theorem. The fourth theorem says that a segment that joins the midpoints of the two sides of a triangle are going to be both parallel to the third side and half as long as the third side. So here we see segment MN connecting the midpoints of the two different sides, where M is the midpoint of AB, N is the midpoint of AC. So this segment connecting the two midpoints would be parallel to the third side. So it's parallel with segment BC. In addition, it is half as long as the third side as well. So if, for example, segment BC were 8 inches, then MN would be half of that, which would be 4 inches. And that concludes our lesson for today. We will see you next time.